Hey everybody, Ashley here from Sexton-brewing.com, and here with my first bottling video. So what we are going to be bottling today is a 1 gallon batch of a very simple cream ale. This was a recipe, probably one of my first recipes I actually created myself. So this is probably almost a 3, maybe 4-year-old recipe. I haven't brewed it in a long time, but with spring and summer coming upon us, I like to brew a few lighter beers, lawnmower beers, whatever you want to call them. So I decided to dig out this recipe, give it a shot, and see if it still stands up as good as I remember it to be back in the day. So I'm just going to take you through a few of my bottling steps. And again, not a professional brewer or anything like that. I do what I think is best for me. My steps seem to work perfectly fine. So I'll take you through it, and we'll take it from there. Anyways, cheers. So what we have here, we have the bottles that I think we're going to need, or the amount of bottles that I think we're going to need for this bottling session. I usually like to prepare a few extras just in case I yield a little bit more beer than expected. So basically they're just sitting here in the sink. I just filled them up with hot water. I usually let them sit for about 10-15 minutes, and then I go at them with a bottling brush. With one of these, and then I let them sit on the fast rack. Let them drip dry before I toss them into a bucket with star sand solution and water. Remembering that sanitation is 100% necessary with this step. Usually while these bottles are sitting, I will go and prep the sugar solution that I'll need to help carbonate up these beers. So now we're going to measure out our priming sugar. For this step I use dextrose, which I actually get from the bulk barn, super cheap. You can use table sugar if you want to. I've always had luck with dextrose, so that's what I use. So just going to even that out, and we are going to be adding 26 grams of dextrose to this. I got that amount by using a calculator, priming sugar calculator. I'll probably throw a link down there somewhere as to what app I use. And basically we're just going to be adding this 26 grams of dextrose to half a cup of water and let that boil out for a few minutes just to help sanitize it. And then once it's cooled down a little bit, then we'll toss it into the bottling bucket, at which point we will add our fermented beer to be carbonated. We got the priming solution boiling on the stove, at which point I'm going to take some of these blank bottle caps I have. Got a whole box and bag of them in the garage, so I usually just rinse these off under warm water, and then I'll toss them into a little bowl with the star sand solution to get those all nice and sanitized. Again, sanitation is 100% key in this process. This right here is the bottling bucket. This is what we're going to be transferring the finished beer into. Right now this bucket is completely filled with about 4, almost 5 gallons of star sand solution. Because that beer is going to go in here, we want to make sure that this is completely sanitized. So I'm almost at the point where I'm ready to pour my priming solution into this bucket. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be emptying out this into this bucket down here, and as you can see, oh geez, so we got all of my bottles are in there. I got my bottling wand, I got my racking cane. The racking cane is going to be used with this tube to transfer the beer from my 1 gallon jug there into the bucket. I probably won't be able to show you that step because I need a free hand, but yeah, so I'm just going to empty this out right now, as we can see. And then we're going to get all my bottles sanitized and all the equipment we're going to be using sanitized as well. And then that will leave us behind a very nice, clean, sanitized bucket. All right, so we're going to do a very quick PSA. This is on what could happen. So if you'll notice, this cap I used to close this up, this cracked. I'm not too sure when during the process this cracked, but it just sort of sets as a reminder that you got to check your equipment before you use it. More often than not, you're dealing with plastic pieces a lot of the time, so you just got to make sure that everything is nice and proper before you use it. The risk here is that this is open space, So there is a risk of infection. Thankfully, you know, everything is looking nice and clean on the inside of the beer. I'm not seeing any not seeing anything funky there, so I think we're good to go. But I guess I'll find out in a week or a week and a half or so whether or not any bugs got in there, because we'll have an infected beer. I'm pretty confident we are good to go, but check your equipment before you use it. I've poured my priming solution into the bucket here, and now we're just going to start the transfer. Again, just making sure that whenever you touch this stuff, everything's got to be perfectly sanitized. I've had my hands in the sanitation solution, so they're perfectly clean. So we're just going to pop this right in here. And this is the gross part. We got to add a little bit of suction to it. And away she goes. Now, it's very important during this process that you limit any sort of splashing whatsoever. I like to get my hose right down to the bottom of the bucket. I put it onto the side on an angle so that it creates more of like a whirlpool type effect, so that it mixes up with the priming solution. And then yeah, that's it. So just gotta watch it. We're gonna get to a point where we're gonna want to start angling the carboy onto an angle to get as much of the beer out of it as possible. So we're gonna do that right now. This can get a little tricky because you don't want all of that trube down at the bottom to get in. Now this batch had a lot of trube at the bottom, so that means our yield is going to be a little bit lesser than I had hoped, but you know what? It is what it is. All right, let's see if I can get any more out of that, and we'll be right back. At this stage, we've used our racking cane and our hose to transfer all the beer from the 1 gallon carboy into our bottling bucket. I sprayed the lid of the bottling bucket with some Star San solution that I always keep in a handy sprayer. This is just good practice to have on hand because you want to keep everything sanitized at all times. I'm just going to let this sit for a few minutes, let the priming solution mix in with the beer, and then we'll get to bottling. Okay, so right now, all I'm going to do, I'm just going to start, I've had these bottles in the Star San solution for a few minutes now. They should be perfectly sanitized, so let's just get these out of here, put them onto the fast rack. Great product, by the way, for anyone who homebrews and bottles. It's been a nice one. Thing with Star San, don't be afraid of the bubbles. If you still have bubbles in here, like you can see there's bubbles in there, bet you by the time I bottle this beer, those bubbles will still be there. Who cares? It will not harm the beer. It doesn't, it's safe, it's non-toxic. It has no impact on the finished product whatsoever. So never be afraid of the bubbles. And some of you may be asking, why are you using such a big bucket for a small batch? It's a little overkill. Yeah, it probably is. Do I run the risk of oxidizing the beer? Probably. But to be honest, I don't have another solution for bottling a 1 gallon batch of beer. If anyone knows of another way, please hit me in the comments below. All right, so here we are. We got everything set up. We got the bottles on the drying rack. I've attached the little tube with the bottling wand on here. So now we're just going to open up this valve. Got to sort of open the lid on this. And yeah, we'll start bottling this up. This should only take a few minutes, so I'll just sit here and chat while I do that. So I usually, what I usually end up doing, I'll bottle a few of these, and then I'll take a sample with my handy dandy albino rhino beer fest glass. Because if you're going to be bottling beer, you might as well be drinking beer at the same time, right? And yeah, why the hell not? So this process usually only takes a few minutes for a small batch like this. If I'm brewing a 5 gallon batch, This process between bottling and capping will probably take around 45 minutes, with everything leading up to it about another 45. So to do a 5-gallon batch of bottling, it's about an hour and a half endeavor if your bottles are already cleaned beforehand. That's why with homebrew, especially with bottle conditioned homebrew, when you're done using the bottle, you should really rinse it out so that you don't get a lot of yeast and trub and stuff like that caked to the bottom of the bottles, because with bottle conditioning, that's what happens. So you got to take care of your bottles. For the longest time, I would end up buying a lot of 6-packs of craft beer that I knew had pry-offs, because you're not supposed to use twist offs, so you don't get a good seal or anything like that on it. So I've gone away from using the craft bottles, because they're you're buying beer, and I guess that's not a bad thing. You're buying good beer and you're drinking good beer, but now I'm just buying blank bottles. With the amount that I've been handing out to friends and family and stuff like that, you sort of run out of a bottle supply pretty quick. So most local homebrew shops they can sell you a case of them for, like, I don't know, between 12 to 16 bucks. And as long as you don't give out too many, it should last you quite some time. So we should be able to get a few more bottles out of this. This is bottle 5. I got this angled because the hole is a little higher off the bottom there. So I just propped it up on the back with a few books just to keep the angle right. Usually the last 2 bottles, I got to tip the bucket back a little bit more. Yeah. Now, if I was doing a 5-gallon batch, what I would usually do as I bottle, I would probably fill up about 10 to 12 bottles and then stop and cap them and then start again. That way I don't have open bottles that are being exposed to the elements for too long. You don't want any bacteria or any bugs getting in there. But just with doing a 1-gallon batch, no need to stop. You can just bottle them all. And holy shit, I'm really surprised. I'm going to get 8 out of this. That is good fortunes. Come on, baby. Get in that bottle. Sometimes you'll end up with a half-full bottle, and that's fine. I mean, again, I'll probably end up using this one as like a test one. I'm really guilty of trying my beers very soon after bottling. I'm going to bottle this, or I'm going to cap it. This will be the first one I drink probably in like 4 days. It probably won't be fully carbed or anything like that, but then it's not wasted beer. You know, beer's beer. I'm just not going to sit on this one because of all that extra headspace. It's a lot of oxygen. It'll oxidize relatively quickly, but screw it. I'm going to bottle it anyways. I'll get the camera set up and we will go through the capping process. So in this little bowl here, I got all of my bottle caps. They've been sitting in a Star San solution again. Star San all over the place, man. We'll just get these capped up. I've always had luck with this capper. Good thing to do, if you're buying one, might as well buy 2, because the last thing you want to do is, if you're in the middle of a capping session like I have been in the past, and something fails on the capper, maybe the handle breaks or something like that, it's always nice to have a backup. Same thing goes for bottling ones. You know, they're cheap. Same thing goes for thermometers or 3-piece airlocks, any of that cheap stuff that is associated with homebrewing. I mean, it's fine to buy one at the beginning, but as you go, just buy extras just to have on hand in case of emergency. In case of emergency, break glass, right? So there we go. I mean, you don't have to exert a lot of force with these cappers. They sort of do the job for you. I have never had an issue with bottles losing carbonation or anything like that with this capper or these caps either. Not much else to say about this. Just if you can do it with a friend, it's always better. The process goes by a lot faster. Now, you may have noticed too during this process, it doesn't get messy per se, it just gets wet. You know, because you're always dealing with, you know, sanitary solution and stuff like that, water, you're constantly cleaning stuff. It's always good to have a few extra towels on hand or towels on the floor. You know, keep the wife happy. You don't want stuff getting all over the place. And again, if you get a little Star San solution, you'll see I'm just taking these right out of the bucket. They're still dripping wet. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It does not matter at all. The Star San will not hurt the beer, ever. And here's that ugly duckling bottle. I'll drink this one. Today's Thursday. I'll probably drink this one on Monday or something like that just to see what's going on. There we go. I'm not too sure how long this video is going to be. Start to finish, I'm probably looking at around 40 minutes for this 1 gallon batch. Here's a sample. Very much looks the part of a cream ale, very light in color. Sort of a little bit of a straw yellow. It's got a little bit of haze to it. We'll see what happens once they're in bottle. You know, much like most cream ales, this is pretty neutral on the aroma. Once it carbs up, we'll see if anything else comes up. But cream ales supposed to be very neutral aroma, very neutral flavor. Neither the malt nor the hop should be taking over. For this batch, I used a combination. You know what? Maybe I'll post a link to recipe somewhere, or it'll be down below. I don't know. For the recipe, I will be doing a review on this one, so not too sure the order of the videos that are going to be going up, but I think I used 2-row flaked corn, actually some table sugar just to dry it out and bump up the ABV without adding too much malt to it. So you basically cut back on the malt and you add more sugar. And for this one, I used cluster hops. Really old school American hop. I don't even think a lot of commercial brewers would even use that anymore. Yeah, you know what? It tastes like cream ale. Very neutral, a little grassy. That cluster hop sort of has a little bit more of like an earthy finish to it. But again, proper tasting video will be coming up shortly. So anyways, hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope this has sort of shed some light on some of the bottling process or sort of basics, so to speak. Maybe I'll do a 5-gallon batch video at some point in time. Once the weather warms up, I'll be out in the garage a little bit more. So anyways, cheers. Have yourselves a good day, and we'll see you on the next video.